The Dubai night shimmered like a mirage, its skyline a cascade of glass and gold under a velvet sky. At Dubai International Airport, the air buzzed with the hum of arriving jets and the chatter of travelers from every corner of the globe. Among them was Amara Santos, a 26-year-old Filipina flight attendant, stepping off a long-haul flight from Manila. Her navy blue uniform hugged her frame, her smile polished from years of service on one of the Middle East's most prestigious airlines. As she wheeled her suitcase through the gleaming terminal, her eyes caught those of a man in a tailored suit, his presence commanding despite the late hour. Khalid Al-Mansouri, a 42-year-old Emirati businessman, exuded wealth and charisma, his dark gaze lingering on Amara a moment too long. In that fleeting exchange, a spark ignited, a spark that would soon engulf them all in flames. Dubai was a city of extremes, where skyscrapers kissed the stars and ancient traditions held firm beneath the glitz. For Amara, it was a place of dreams, a far cry from the cramped streets of Manila where she'd grown up. She'd come here to chase a better life, to send money home to her family, to escape the weight of poverty. Her job as a flight attendant offered glamour, first-class cabins, five-star hotels, but also loneliness, a transient existence in a city that dazzled yet demanded discretion. Khalid, however, belonged to Dubai's elite, a world of private yachts and desert villas. A real estate mogul with a wife and 2 children, he moved through life with the ease of a man who owned every room he entered. But behind his polished exterior lay a hunger for something more, something Amara unknowingly offered. At home, Noor Al-Mansouri, Khalid's wife, sat in their palatial villa, her elegant fingers tracing the rim of a coffee cup. At 38, she was the picture of Emirati grace, educated, poised, a mother who upheld her family's honor in a society where reputation was everything. Yet lately, Khalid's late nights and distant demeanor gnawed at her. Whispers from friends, a stray receipt for a diamond bracelet she'd never received, fueled a growing unease. Noor's pride battled her fear, her love for Khalid clashing with the suspicion that another woman had entered their lives. What began as a chance encounter on a flight would unravel into a tale of forbidden desire, betrayal, and vengeance. Amara, Khalid, and Noor were on a collision course, their choices weaving a web that would end in blood. This is the story of a love affair that defied Dubai's glittering facade, a secret that tore through cultural lines, and a wife's rage that turned deadly, a true crime that would shock a city built on dreams. Amara Santos grew up in a cramped, tin-roofed home in Tondo, Manila, where the air was thick with the clamor of street vendors and the weight of survival. The youngest of 5, she watched her parents toil, her father a jeepney driver, her mother a laundrywoman, barely scraping by to feed their family. From a young age, Amara dreamed of escape, her imagination sparked by glossy magazines showcasing far-off cities like Dubai, where skyscrapers gleamed and opportunity seemed limitless. At 20, her determination and charm landed her a coveted job as a flight attendant with a top Middle Eastern airline, a ticket out of poverty. She trained rigorously, mastering the art of polished smiles and flawless service, her dark eyes and warm demeanor winning over passengers and crew alike. Now 26, Amara lived in Dubai's Al Barsha district, sharing a modest apartment with other Filipina cabin crew. Her life was a whirlwind of layovers, jet lag, and fleeting glimpses of luxury, first-class cabins, 5-star hotels, and the occasional rooftop party overlooking the Burj Khalifa. She sent most of her earnings home, her remittances funding her siblings, education, and her mother's medical bills. Yet beneath the glamour, Amara felt a quiet ache. Dubai's dazzle was intoxicating, but it was also isolating. Her roommates, bound by their shared Catholic upbringing, whispered warnings about the city's temptations, wealthy men who saw foreign women as playthings. Amara, though, was ambitious, her naivety cloaked in optimism. She believed in love, in the fairy tale promise of a man who could lift her into a world of stability. Her heart, unguarded, was a spark waiting for a flame. Khalid Al-Mansouri was a man who commanded attention without effort. At 42, he was a titan in Dubai's real estate scene, his name tied to sleek towers and sprawling desert compounds. Born into a prominent Emirati family, he'd inherited wealth but built his empire through sharp deals and sharper charm. His tailored thobes and Rolex watch signaled status, but it was his easy smile and piercing gaze that disarmed those around him. To the public, Khalid was a model of success. A devoted husband, father to a son and daughter, and a pillar of Dubai's elite. He frequented charity galas and mosque prayers, his life a careful balance of tradition and modernity. Beneath this facade, Khalid craved escape from the pressures of his world. His marriage to Noor, arranged but affectionate in its early years, had grown strained under the weight of his ambitions and her expectations. Business trips and late-night meetings gave him freedom, and he indulged in Dubai's underbelly, exclusive lounges, private parties, and fleeting encounters with women who didn't ask for commitment. Khalid met Amara on one such night, her vibrancy a contrast to the polished restraint of his social circle. He saw in her a chance to feel alive again, to chase a thrill without consequence. His promises came easily, but so did his lies, a habit honed by years of navigating power and privilege. Noor al-Mansouri was the epitome of Emirati elegance, her abaya adorned with subtle embroidery that spoke of wealth and taste. At 38, she was a graduate of Zayd University, fluent in English and Arabic, and a mother who doted on her children while upholding her family's honor. Raised in a traditional household, Noor understood the unspoken rules of her world. A wife's duty was to preserve harmony, to shield her husband's reputation, to embody grace under scrutiny. Her marriage to Khalid, though arranged, had once been warm, filled with shared dreams of building a legacy. But over time, Khalid's absences, late nights at business dinners, trips abroad with vague explanations, chipped away at her trust. Noor's life was a delicate dance of public poise and private doubt. Friends hinted at Khalid's wandering eye, their veiled comments cutting deeper than accusations. A receipt for a diamond bracelet she never received, a whiff of unfamiliar perfume on his thobe. These were clues she couldn't ignore. Yet confronting him risked shame, not just for her but for her family, whose standing in Dubai's tight-knit elite depended on appearances. Noor's pride warred with her pain, her love for Khalid tangled with a growing rage. She felt the weight of tradition pressing down, demanding she protect her marriage at all costs. In her heart, a storm was brewing, one that would soon break with devastating force. Amara, Khalid, and Noor were three lives intertwined by chance and choice, each driven by desires that clashed with Dubai's rigid social fabric. Amara's dreams of love and security blinded her to the dangers of crossing cultural lines. Khalid's pursuit of pleasure ignored the wreckage it could leave behind. And Noor, bound by honor and betrayal, stood on the edge of a decision that would shatter them all. In Dubai's glittering maze, their paths converged, leading to a collision that would end in blood. The cabin of flight EK-342 from Manila to Dubai hummed with the soft clink of champagne glasses and the murmur of first-class passengers settling in for the night. Amara Santos, her navy blue uniform crisp despite the 10-hour shift, moved gracefully down the aisle, offering warm towels and practiced smiles. At seat 2A, Khalid al-Mansouri glanced up from his tablet, his dark eyes catching hers. He was older, distinguished, his tailored suit and gold cufflinks screaming wealth. "A coffee, please," he said, his voice low, accented with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. Amara nodded, her pulse quickening as their fingers brushed while passing the cup. His gaze lingered, not predatory but curious, as if seeing her for the first time. The flight wore on and Khalid's requests grew frequent. A refill, a blanket, a question about Manila. Each interaction carried a charge, his charm disarming her professional reserve. By the time the plane descended into Dubai's glittering night, he'd slipped her a business card with a handwritten note. Dinner at Burj Al Arab tomorrow. Amara's heart raced. She knew the rules. Flight attendants were warned against fraternizing with passengers, especially men like Khalid, whose Emirati status signaled power and complications. But his smile, the promise of something beyond her transient life, was intoxicating. Back in her shared apartment, she stared at the card, her roommates, laughter fading as she texted him a tentative yes. Their first meeting was electric. At the Burj Al Arab's Al Mahara restaurant, surrounded by an aquarium's glowing blues, Khalid was every inch the gentleman, attentive, witty, sharing stories of his travels. Amara, in a borrowed dress that hugged her curves, felt like she'd stepped into a dream. He spoke of his work, his love for Dubai's ambition, but never mentioned a wife or children. Amara, naive but not foolish, sensed omissions but pushed them aside. For one night, she wanted to believe in the fairy tale. Over the next few weeks, their secret blossomed in Dubai's hidden corners. Khalid arranged clandestine dinners at private rooftop lounges where the city's skyline stretched like a promise. He gifted her a gold bracelet, then a Louis Vuitton bag, each wrapped in velvet boxes that made her gasp. "For you," he'd say, his fingers grazing hers, igniting sparks she hadn't felt before. They met in discreet hotel suites, their afternoons stolen between her flights and his meetings. Khalid's promises grew bolder. He spoke of a future together, of helping her family, even hinting at leaving his past behind. Amara clung to these words, her heart drowning out the warnings in her head. Yet the affair was a tightrope. Amara hid it from her roommates, who noticed her new accessories and late-night absences. "Be careful, Amara," said Maria, her closest friend, over coffee in their cramped kitchen. "Men like that don't leave their families. You're playing with fire." Amara laughed it off, but the cultural chasm loomed. Dubai's strict social codes frowned on such relationships, especially between a Filipina migrant and an Emirati elite. She avoided Khalid's family villa, their meetings confined to neutral ground. Hotels, desert retreats, or his sleek Range Rover where they'd talk under starlit skies. Each encounter deepened her hope, blinding her to the risks. Amara's internal conflict gnawed at her. Raised Catholic, she wrestled with guilt over the affair, whispering prayers for forgiveness after their trysts. But Khalid's attention was a drug. His promises of a shared apartment, a life beyond crew housing, felt like salvation. She ignored the red flags, his guarded phone, his vague explanations for canceling plans. In her mind, love could bridge any gap, even one as vast as Dubai's social divide. Across the city, in a palatial villa in Jumeirah, Noor Al-Mansouri sensed a shift. Khalid's absences had grown longer, his excuses flimsier. "Client dinners," he'd say, but his eyes avoided hers. A friend, Aisha, had seen him at a hotel bar with a young woman, her description chillingly vague yet pointed. "Pretty, foreign, in a tight dress." Noor's stomach churned. She rifled through his wallet one night, finding a receipt for a 5,000 dirham bracelet from Dama's jewelry, a gift she'd never received. His thobe carried a faint trace of jasmine perfume, foreign to her own rose oud. Noor's world began to fracture. As an Emirati woman, she was the keeper of her family's honor, expected to maintain a flawless facade. Divorce was unthinkable. It would shame her parents, her children, her name. Yet the betrayal cut deeper than pride. She loved Khalid, had built a life with him, borne his children. The thought of another woman, likely a transient worker, in her mind, stealing his affection, was a humiliation she couldn't bear. She confronted him one evening, her voice steady but sharp. "Who is she, Khalid?" He deflected, blaming her imagination, but his unease betrayed him. Noor's suspicion turned to obsession. She scrolled through his phone while he slept, finding no direct evidence but enough gaps to fuel her fears. She confided in Aisha, who suggested a private investigator, a discreet service used by Dubai's elite to uncover indiscretions. Noor hesitated. Such a move felt like admitting defeat, but the sting of betrayal pushed her forward. She needed a name, a face, to make sense of the unraveling threads of her marriage. As she sat in her villa, the city's lights mocking her solitude, Noor's pain hardened into resolve. Whoever this woman was, she would not let her destroy everything she'd built. Amara and Khalid's affair, a fragile bubble of stolen moments, was hurtling toward exposure. Amara, lost in her dreams of love, didn't see the danger closing in. Khalid, juggling his double life, underestimated Noor's tenacity. And Noor, driven by a mix of love, rage, and cultural duty, was a ticking bomb, her suspicions sharpening into a blade. In Dubai's glittering maze, their secret was about to ignite a tragedy that would echo far beyond its towers. Noor Al-Mansouri's world, once a carefully curated tapestry of elegance and duty, was unraveling thread by thread. The receipt for the diamond bracelet, tucked in Khalid's wallet, had been her first clue. A 5,000 dirham purchase from Dama's jewelry, dated 3 weeks ago, for a gift she never received. Then came the whispers from Aisha, her closest confidant, who'd seen Khalid at the Jumeirah Beach Hotel's rooftop bar, laughing with a young woman in a sleek dress, her demeanor too familiar for a stranger. Noor's heart pounded as she pieced together the fragments. Late-night meetings, the jasmine perfume on his thobe, the guarded way he clutched his phone. She could no longer dismiss these as paranoia. Desperate for answers, Noor turned to a discreet private investigator, a service whispered about among Dubai's elite for handling delicate matters. The investigator, a wiry Pakistani man named Faisal, worked in the shadows, his methods as subtle as they were effective. Within days, he delivered a slim envelope to Noor's villa, its contents searing her soul. Photos showed Khalid and a young Filipina woman, Amara Santos, a flight attendant, entering a boutique hotel in Dera, their hands brushing as they stepped into an elevator. A grainy screenshot of a text exchange, lifted from Khalid's second phone, confirmed the affair. "Miss you already, my love. Tomorrow at 8. Amara's reply was a heart emoji. Noor's hands trembled as she read Amara's name, her employee ID from the airline's database included in Faisal's report. The woman stealing her husband was no longer a faceless ghost, but a real threat. A 26-year-old migrant worker with dreams too big for her station. Noor's emotions churned like a desert storm. Humiliation burned hottest. She, an educated Emirati woman, daughter of a respected family, was being betrayed by a maid-like figure in Dubai's social hierarchy. Cultural expectations weighed heavy. Divorce would disgrace her family, taint her children's futures, and expose her to the city's merciless gossip. Yet the pain of Khalid's infidelity cut deeper than pride. She de-loved him, built a life with him, endured his ambitions. The thought of him whispering promises to another woman felt like a knife to her chest. Noor stared at Amara's photo, her youthful beauty a mockery of Noor's fading youth. Rage simmered, but so did a cold resolve. She would not let this woman destroy her world. That evening, as the call to Maghrib prayer echoed across Jumeirah, Noor waited for Khalid in their villa's marble-clad living room. The children were at her mother's, leaving the house eerily silent. Khalid arrived late, his tie loosened, unaware of the storm awaiting him. Noor stood, her abaya sweeping the floor, and held up the incriminating photo. "Who is she, Khalid?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes blazed. Khalid froze, his usual charm faltering. He stammered, "It's nothing, Noor, a business associate." But the lie crumbled under her glare. She tossed the envelope at him, photos spilling across the coffee table. "Amara Santos, a flight attendant, how long?" Khalid's deflection turned to anger, then desperation. "It's not what you think," he insisted, pacing the room. "She's just a distraction, a mistake." He swore it meant nothing, that he'd end it, that he loved Noor and their family. But his words rang hollow, each promise felt like another betrayal. Noor's voice rose, cutting through his excuses. "You've shamed me, Khalid, our children, our name." She spoke of honor, of the whispers already spreading among their social circle, of the disgrace he'd invited. Khalid begged for forgiveness, promising to cut ties with Amara, but his eyes betrayed guilt, not remorse. Noor turned away, her heart hardening. She didn't want his apologies, she wanted justice. The confrontation left their marriage in tatters. Khalid slept in the guest room, his phone now locked with a new passcode. Noor lay awake, her mind racing. She couldn't divorce him. The scandal would ruin her family's standing. But neither could she let Amara walk away unscathed. The cultural weight of honor, the pressure to protect her role as wife and mother, pushed Noor toward a dangerous edge. She began researching Amara's life. Her flight schedules, her crew hotel, her routines, each detail fueling a plan she barely admitted to herself. Across the city, Amara floated in a bubble of her own making. Unaware of Noor's discovery, she clung to Khalid's promises like a lifeline. Their latest rendezvous in a desert villa under a canopy of stars had been magical. Khalid had held her close, whispering of a future where she'd no longer need to fly, where her family in Manila would want for nothing. "I'm working on things," he said, his fingers tracing her cheek. "Soon it'll just be us." Amara believed him, her heart drowning out the doubts that crept in during quiet moments. She ignored the canceled plans, the times he silenced his phone mid-conversation, the way he never invited her to his home. Her roommates noticed the change, new dresses, a glow in her eyes, a recklessness in her laughter. Maria, her closest friend, confronted her one night in their Al Barsha apartment. "Amara, he's married. You think he'll leave his wife for you? In Dubai." Amara bristled, insisting Khalid was different, that he loved her. "He's getting a divorce," she said, the words more hope than truth. Maria shook her head, warning of the dangers. Emirati men rarely left their families, and foreign women like Amara were often discarded. But Amara was too far gone, her dreams of love and security blinding her to the cultural chasm she was crossing. She spent her layovers texting Khalid, planning their next meeting, oblivious to the storm gathering around her. Noor al-Mansouri's villa, once a sanctuary of marble and silk, now felt like a cage. The photos of Khalid and Amara supplied by the private investigator lay scattered on her dressing table, each image a fresh wound. Amara's smiling face, young, radiant, a Filipina flight attendant with no claim to Dubai's elite circles, mocked Noor's pride. The cultural weight of her role as an Emirati wife pressed down. She was expected to preserve her family's honor, to shield her children from shame, to endure in silence. But silence was no longer an option. Khalid's promises to end the affair rang hollow, his evasions during their confrontation fueling her rage. Noor's love for him had curdled into betrayal, and Amara, the woman who dared to cross into her world, became the target of her fury. Noor's plan took shape in the quiet hours after midnight, as Dubai's skyline glittered beyond her window. She couldn't confront Amara publicly. Such a spectacle would invite gossip, tarnishing her family's name. Instead, she needed a private reckoning, one that would send a message without exposing her own humiliation. Using the investigator's report, Noor mapped Amara's routine. Layovers at the Royal Mirage Hotel, a crew favorite in Dubai Marina with predictable check-in times. Noor's mind, sharpened by weeks of obsession, devised a lure. She would pose as a guest needing assistance, exploiting Amara's professional instincts to draw her into a trap. The thought of violence flickered at the edges of her plan, but Noor pushed it down, convincing herself she only wanted answers, closure, a chance to reclaim her dignity. She prepared meticulously. A burner phone purchased from a nondescript electronics shop in Dera ensured her calls couldn't be traced. She chose a silk scarf to cover her hair, not her usual abaya, to blend into the hotel's cosmopolitan crowd. Her hands shook as she rehearsed her script, her voice steadying with each practice. "Miss Santos, there's an issue with my booking. Can you meet me in room 1408? Noor's rage was afire, but her upbringing demanded control. She told herself this was about confronting Amara, not destroying her. Yet in her purse, she carried a small kitchen knife, its presence a whisper of darker intent she refused to name. The Royal Mirage Hotel shimmered under the Dubai sun, its palm-lined entrance a haven for weary travelers. Amara, fresh off a flight from London, checked into her crew room, her mind on Khalid's latest text. "Busy today, love. Tomorrow?" She ignored the pang of doubt, slipping into a simple dress for a quick nap before her next shift. At 6 p.m., her hotel phone rang. A woman's voice, polite but firm, requested her help in room 1408, citing a mix-up with a VIP booking. Amara, trained to prioritize guest satisfaction, agreed without hesitation. She smoothed her hair, grabbed her crew badge, and headed to the 14th floor, unaware of the storm awaiting her. Noor opened the door to room 1408, her scarf framing a face taut with controlled fury. Amara hesitated, sensing something off, the woman's accent, her piercing gaze, but professionalism kept her rooted. "Please come in," Noor said, her voice honeyed with menace. The door clicked shut, and the room, with its plush carpets and floor-to-ceiling windows, became a stage for tragedy. Noor dropped the pretense. "You're Amara Santos," she said, stepping closer. "The woman sleeping with my husband." Amara's breath caught, her eyes widening as she stammered. "I didn't know. He said he was leaving you." The lie, meant to appease, only inflamed Noor. The confrontation spiraled. Noor's voice rose, accusing Amara of destroying her family, of disrespecting her culture, of stealing what wasn't hers. Amara, tears streaming, pleaded her case, Khalid's promises, her love for him, her dreams of a better life. But Noor saw only betrayal, a foreign woman who dared to challenge her place. The knife, hidden in Noor's purse, found its way into her hand, almost as if by instinct. Amara backed away, her hands raised, but Noor's rage erupted. In a blur of motion, she struck, once, twice, the blade slicing through Amara's dress, then her skin. Amara screamed, stumbling against the bed, but Noor's fury was relentless. Blood stained the cream carpet, a stark contrast to the room's opulence. Amara collapsed, her eyes glazing over, her dreams extinguished in a matter of minutes. Noor stood frozen, the knife slipping from her hand. The reality of what she'd done crashed over her, Amara's lifeless body, the blood pooling beneath her, the silence that followed her screams. Panic replaced rage. Noor's training as an elite wife kicked in. She couldn't be caught, not like this. Her family's honor, her children's future, depended on her escape. She wiped the knife on the bedspread, her hands trembling, and stuffed it back into her purse. She adjusted her scarf, checked her reflection in the mirror, eerily calm despite the chaos, and slipped out, leaving the door slightly ajar to delay discovery. Noor's mind raced as she drove through Dubai's neon-lit streets, the city's glamour now a cruel mockery. She called her cousin Omar, a loyal but discreet family member who worked in logistics. "I need help," she whispered, her voice breaking. Omar, sensing her distress, met her at a quiet cafe in Al-Quaz. Noor confessed in fragments, her words veiled but clear enough. A mistake, a body, a need to make it disappear. Omar, bound by family loyalty, agreed to help, though his unease was palpable. He suggested moving the body to a construction site in the desert, where his company's projects often buried debris under sand. They returned to the hotel under cover of night, using Omar's access to a service entrance. Amara's body, wrapped in hotel linens, was loaded into a van. Noor's scarf, stained with blood, was left behind in her haste, a fatal oversight. They drove to a site near Jebel Ali where bulldozers churned the earth. Omar buried Amara's body in a shallow grave, the desert swallowing her secrets. Noor watched, numb, as the sand settled. Back home, Khalid noticed her disheveled state but asked no questions, his own guilt silencing him. Noor burned her clothes, scrubbed her skin raw, but the weight of her actions clung like dust. The Royal Mirage Hotel, a beacon of luxury in Dubai Marina, became a crime scene by dawn. A housekeeper, preparing room 1408 for the next guest, discovered bloodstains on the cream carpet and a discarded silk scarf, its delicate embroidery marred by crimson smudges. Her scream alerted security, and within hours, Dubai police swarmed the hotel, their white uniforms stark against the opulent decor. The case, involving a murdered Filipina flight attendant, Amara Santos, sent ripples through a city obsessed with its pristine image. Initial theories pointed to a robbery gone wrong. Amara's purse was missing, her crew badge tossed in a corner, but the blood's volume and the scarf's presence suggested something personal, calculated. The investigation moved swiftly. CCTV footage from the 14th floor showed a woman in a scarf entering the room with Amara, her face obscured but her gait deliberate. The hotel's guest log revealed no record of a booking for room 1408 that night, raising suspicions of a setup. Forensic teams lifted fingerprints from the door handle and found traces of Amara's blood on the bedspread, alongside a single strand of long, dark hair not matching the victim's. The scarf, a high-end Hermes piece, was a critical clue, its unique pattern traceable to a boutique in Dubai Mall. Detectives, led by Captain Hassan al-Balushi, a veteran with a reputation for cracking high-profile cases, sensed a motive rooted in passion or betrayal. The victim's status as a migrant worker complicated matters. Dubai's authorities were keen to avoid scrutiny over their treatment of foreign labor, pushing for a quick resolution. Amara's colleagues, interviewed at the airline's crew headquarters, painted a picture of a vibrant woman with a secretive side. Maria, her roommate, tearfully mentioned Amara's new gifts, jewelry, a designer bag, and whispered rumors of a wealthy lover. The police cross-referenced passenger manifests from Amara's recent flights, landing on Khalid al-Mansouri, a frequent first-class flyer who'd been on her Manila-Dubai route. His prominence as an Emirati businessman added a layer of sensitivity. Investigating an elite family risked political backlash. Yet, the evidence, CCTV, the scarf, and Amara's phone records showing frequent texts to Khalid's number, pointed directly to his orbit. Khalid was summoned to Dubai Police Headquarters, a sleek building in Al Twar, under the guise of a routine inquiry. In the interrogation room, Captain Hassan laid out photos of Amara's body, her lifeless form a stark contrast to the vibrant woman Khalid knew. His composure cracked, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air-conditioned chill. "I knew her," he admitted, his voice low. "She was a flight attendant. We talked." But under pressure, his story unraveled. Text messages pulled from Amara's phone revealed intimate exchanges. "Love you always," she'd written days before her death. Khalid confessed to the affair, claiming it was fleeting, a mistake. "I never meant for this to happen," he said, his hands trembling. When pressed about Noor, Khalid grew evasive. He denied telling her about Amara, but his hesitation betrayed him. Captain Hassan leaned in, citing the scarf found at the scene, a match to one Noor owned, purchased with Khalid's credit card. Khalid's face paled. He stammered that Noor couldn't have known that she was at home that night. But his guilt was palpable. He'd known Noor's suspicions, her rage during their confrontation, yet he'd done nothing to stop the spiral. His silence had enabled a tragedy. The interrogation ended with Khalid's reputation in tatters. His business partners distanced themselves, and whispers of scandal spread through Dubai's elite circles, eroding the image he'd spent years crafting. The scarf was the linchpin. Boutique records confirmed Noor's purchase, and CCTV from the Dubai Mall showed her buying it weeks earlier. Combined with hotel footage and a partial fingerprint match from room 1408, the evidence was damning. Captain Hassan's team moved cautiously, aware of the Al-Mansouri family's influence. On a humid evening, police arrived at their Jumeirah villa, where Noor sat with her children, her face a mask of calm. When presented with a warrant, she didn't resist, kissing her son and daughter goodbye as her mother wailed in the background. The arrest, discreet but unavoidable, sent shockwaves through Dubai's social scene, where such scandals were rarely exposed. At the station, Noor's poise held firm. She admitted to meeting Amara, claiming it was to talk to make her leave Khalid. But the blood, the knife marks, and the cover-up attempt, corroborated by Omar's nervous confession after his own arrest, undermined her story. Omar revealed the desert burial, leading police to Amara's shallow grave near Jebel Ali, her body still wrapped in hotel linens. Noor's defense crumbled as forensic evidence tied her to the crime. The knife, recovered from her purse at home, bore Amara's DNA. The trial loomed, a media circus that would pit Noor's claims of emotional distress against the brutal reality of Amara's death. The Dubai Criminal Court was a fortress of glass and steel, its chambers humming with tension as Noor al-Mansouri's trial began in late 2023. The case, splashed across Gulf News and trending on X with hashtags like Dubai Murder, drew crowds, journalists, curious expats, and Emirati women whispering behind their niqabs. Noor, dressed in a plain abaya, sat composed, her eyes fixed on the judge. Her defense team, a high-powered firm bankrolled by her family, argued temporary insanity, painting her as a woman driven to desperation by Khalid's betrayal. She acted in a moment of passion, her lawyer claimed, citing cultural pressures to protect family honor. Noor testified softly, admitting to confronting Amara but insisting the knife was for self-defense, the attack an unplanned outburst. Her tears, though, failed to sway the room. The prosecution was relentless. Captain Hassan al-Balushi presented damning evidence: the bloodied scarf, CCTV footage, the knife with Amara's DNA, and Omar's testimony about the desert burial. Amara's family, joining via video from Manila, wept as photos of her body were shown, their grief a stark contrast to Noor's stoic demeanor. The judge, balancing Dubai's legal code with its social sensitivities, convicted Noor of premeditated murder but showed leniency due to her status and lack of prior record. She was sentenced to 7 years, a term that sparked outrage on X, where users decried it as too light for a migrant's life. Amara's family received modest compensation, a legal formality that did little to ease their loss. Noor's children, shielded by grandparents, faced a future tainted by their mother's crime. The case peeled back Dubai's glittering veneer, exposing its fault lines. Amara's murder highlighted the precarious lives of migrant workers, who fueled the city's economy yet faced exploitation and danger. Filipina advocacy groups in Dubai rallied, demanding better protections, while ex-posts debated the power imbalances between expats and locals. Noor's actions, rooted in cultural notions of honor, sparked discussions about the pressures on Emirati women, expected to uphold tradition while navigating a globalized world. The trial also underscored Dubai's obsession with image. Authorities downplayed the scandal to protect tourism, but the story's viral spread made silence impossible. True crime fans globally devoured the tale, drawn to its mix of glamour, betrayal, and violence, a modern tragedy set against a backdrop of wealth. In a quiet Al Barsha apartment, Amara's crew uniform hung untouched in a shared closet, its navy fabric gathering dust. Her roommates, packing her belongings for her family, found a photo tucked in her diary. Amara, smiling under Dubai's neon lights, unaware of her fate. Across the city, Noor sat in a cell, her elegance replaced by the weight of regret, her thoughts on her children growing up without her. Khalid, alone in his villa, stared at a city he no longer recognized, haunted by the affair that destroyed 2 lives. Dubai's skyline gleamed on, indifferent to the tragedy, a reminder that in this city of dreams, some stories end in darkness.